Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about software engineering. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard would you say software engineering is? Based on what comparison? If you compare it to, I don't know, nuclear physics, yeah, then it's probably not a 10, if we're going to call that a 10. But if it's compared to the average job, then you're getting closer to like the 10 range, depending on how you want to slice it. So if you were to ask me personally, I don't really think that you can say 1 to 10 here, because it wouldn't matter what I say here. What I can tell you is sort of at least try to describe the challenges that you will be facing and sort of what you are in for, and then you can determine whether or not that's 10 or 7 or 5 or like whatever that is to you, right? So the first hurdle that you're going to face when it comes to software development is to basically not know where to start. How do you become a software developer? Well, that's not problem number one, right? Because there's a million types of tooling and different types of languages and frameworks and stuff like that. And that uncertainty is kind of intimidating, because a lot of us feel like when we're new on something, we kind of just want something to be like, yeah, there's one way or there's maybe two ways of doing something, like fairly simple stuff, right? That's not programming. Programming is a gigantic area where there are so many choices that, just the first choice is which programming language. And if any of you ever tried to figure that one out, I feel for you, because I was in your situation a while back. And that's why I usually tell people that you just go to the job posting, pick the thing that seems to be the thing that whatever company you want to work for, like that they are using. That's what I usually go for, because you're gonna cripple yourself trying to figure out which stack to pick and which one is the best one and stuff like that. So that's the first thing. Now the second thing is that you don't know of the thing you make a choice for. Like you don't really know how to even get started learning programming. Okay, so where do you go and learn it? Are you going to go with a boot camp? You're going to go to university? Are you going to self-study? And if you do, which materials are going to be relevant? Because you don't actually know how the thing works. So that's the next thing you're going to have to figure out. A lot of uncertainty. And then when you finally settle on something, you're going to try some stuff out, and you're going to be introduced to concepts that have probably never crossed your way path before. Like your variables, the loops, and like all the different types of logic, and how you run various tools on the computer, especially if you're like, if you're not a heavy computer user, or like usage of like, if you don't really have any, when I started, guys, I love playing computer games, but even though I've been playing them for most of my life, I was not prepared to start using like terminal tools and like all this sort of stuff. You can use other tools, but there's a lot of other stuff that the operating system on your computer can do. And so that's the next thing. And now you realize that, oh shit, there's like a mountain of stuff apart from the coding that you need to learn as well, and you know none of it. So you're painstakingly going to try to figure out, and in many cases you might spend hours on just figuring out what command to use, or how something works, or how to do basic things. It's going to be a really tough initial slope, because it takes a while to learn all the basic commands of just take Git, for example, for version control. I can promise you that is not something you're going to learn like in 10 minutes. It's going to take a while to learn that, and it's going to take, shit, guys, I know people who are senior software developers who don't know more than the basic commands of that tool. That's just one tool. And as I said, there's a mounting of it. And so once you get to that point, you're going to start feeling like, well, there's a lot of stuff to study. And that is the main thing. The big thing that's going to determine whether or not you feel this is a 10 or something else is, how okay are you with sitting hours upon hours, not really understanding what you're doing, and then continue reading and trying to find like answers to your questions, because there's not like a textbook, like there's no like textbook that's going to tell you that, you know, there you can't, like in some math books where you can go to the end of the book and find the answer. That's not necessarily how it works. You're basically fucked if you can't solve it yourself, or to figure it out by going to Stack Overflow or these various tools. I mean, today AI can help you a lot more, and so forth. So we're getting more lucky than we used to be. I used to say, I am truly amazed at how the people who started programming before the internet became so big as it is, like it is today. Because I had the internet, I had Stack Overflow and stuff like that. They didn't even have that. And now we have AI, which is even nicer, I argue, for a lot of this sort of stuff. But it's still a lot of trial and error, feeling like you don't really know what you're doing and so forth. And then, as I said, the mountain of stuff that you will need to learn in order to just feel like you know what the fuck is going on in the overall system. And I can tell you now, guys, that at where I am right now in my career, I would say that I feel fairly confident in a lot of Stack, like in terms of like I understand where most things are going and like how things work and stuff like that, but I'm far from like a master of all of it. And that's me 10, I don't know where you're going to watch it, like it's we're talking, I'm well past the point where I've been doing this for 10 years at this point. And trust me when I say I did not feel that way just a few years ago. And so you're going to have quite a lot of struggle. I mean, honestly, guys, it's a little bit like running a marathon or something like that. It's going to be sweaty, and it's going to be like unpleasant at times and so forth. It's going to be a lot of fun as well. At least if you can sort of get over the fact that you don't really know how things are working, and then you just fiddle around with stuff, try stuff out, and so forth and so forth. And if you enjoy the craft, you're going to have a lot of fun. But it is a fairly significant investment, and it's not something that you just do and then that's it. It's definitely going to be ranked as one of the more difficult things that you will do in your life if you want to get good at this thing. So what I want you to take away from this is that on a scale from 1 to 10, if you're gonna use my scale, the pinnacle of difficulty would be like something, I don't know, that I perceive to be very hard, and I wouldn't say that programming is the hardest thing that I can imagine doing, but I'm going to put it on the upper scale, like at the 7, 8 or something like that, in terms of if you consider all the things you actually have to master in order to feel comfortable doing it. If that is your bar, that's a fairly significant investment. And for most of us, it's going to be a pretty steep learning curve to start off with, and then depending on how far you get and so forth, you might never actually learn all the things, and it may not necessarily be necessary. But that's the tricky part about software engineering. It doesn't really just stay the way that you learned it. It moves around, and there's such a vast area to cover in terms of knowledge and different types of systems, different operating systems, different cloud solutions, different tools, libraries, standards, practices. Like this, like you can spend your whole life and you're not going to learn all of it. And the trickiest part about it is that unless you are literally in exactly the same job, in the same role, the same stack for your whole career, you might be forced to learn things, and usually on a deadline or a timeline or something like that, because you can't take forever to learn this stuff. And that is like, this is after you've just figured out how to even get something to work, to do anything, and to pick your stack and pick your languages and all that stuff. And there is no textbook for which one is the best one, as I said. So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns, and sort of just getting, as I said, like take that with you. Just pick something that seems relevant to the region you want to work in, and just accept that there is no perfect choice. And then just brace yourself for a lot of like trial and error, figuring stuff out, sitting endless hours and just trying to figure out which command do I use, why is my code not running, why does this configuration not work, and stuff like that. So my tip to you, to get that number as far down on the scale as possible: number one, make sure that you don't try to be like pick a perfect stack or anything like that. Just pick something that is relevant for the sort of jobs that you want. Number one. Number two is get good at figuring out how to get the answers to your questions. Use AI, use the web, use all these sort of things to sort of try to figure out what's going on. And then third and lastly, understand that you're not going to just dive in here and get everything and so forth. So be a little bit nice to yourself. Everybody has a tough time in the beginning, and there is really no easy way to do it. It is very much like strength training or anything like that, where this is completely new to you. You've never done anything like it, and so you're going to have to do a lot of work and a lot of fuck-ups before you start getting and understanding things. And it might take you years to get to the point where you feel fairly confident in your own skills, because that is how big this industry is. So it is a little bit of a tough going, especially in the beginning. It gets easier, that much I can promise you. It's going to get easier, and if you enjoy it, you're going to have a really good time doing this sort of thing. But it's not something that you just, sort of do and then you're like, then it's all like all hunky-dory and so forth. It is a fairly significant investment. Have a great day.